So, what will it mean for Americans if Barack Obama or John McCain is elected? What will actually happen? How will it benefit you or hurt you? So, the reason I ask this race is extremely close, and that seems puzzling to a lot of people considering the popularity of the current president. So we have to ask ourselves, why is it so close? And there's a lot of myths on both sides about it. So we really, to unpeel it, we have to cut through a layer of crap that both sides are unwilling to directly take the bull by the horns on. The reason this election is so close is not because Americans are stupid. It is because the two campaigns are articulating the basic division in our whole outlook that describes the difference between Republicans and Democrats. So the Republican point of view is that he who governs least governs best. And mantras like "don't tread on me," "don't fence me in," self-reliance. And then when we saw the Republican campaign, it showcased individuals who against great odds distinguished themselves, the ultimate meritocracy. But obviously every one of us asks ourselves, unless we're super champions, when we see these descriptions, do I qualify for such a meritocracy? Do I really want to have to be a superhero to make it? So that's sort of a personal aside. But the Republican philosophy is, if you give the money to the government to try to fund economic growth, it won't work because the government is inefficient and will waste it. But what actually happens is that the Republicans, because they're so cozy with big industry, no offense guys, end up a lot of times with these foxes guarding the hen houses, and all kinds of mayhem breaks out. So what I mean is, you make a guy who used to run a large pork production facility in charge of pork regulations, and then you get contaminated rivers. And the irony of the Republican philosophy is that even though of course, the big business and rich people say, yeah, that's great, he who governs least governs best, because I want to keep my stuff and I don't want you guys in my face, and we're doing just fine already, so we want to expand our influence and control. We don't want to be regulated and controlled. So obviously they hop on top of that message, so you end up cozy with these guys who then end up porking out on government contracts. So if we elect a Republican philosophy individual and say, okay, sure, in an ideal world, if you keep all the money in the private industry, that's going to fund more job growth than giving it to the government because of the equilibrium of the marketplace. It certainly is a safer bet. Now, the other view is that we need to cooperate and we need to be mutually supportive, and that we are part of a community. And that view says who is really vulnerable based on what happens in this election. And it's the lower middle class and the poor, the upper middle class, because they're tanking. We haven't not had actual social mobility since 1970 in this country. That's what they say. Of course, we all know, those of us who remember, there were better things about those times and there are better things about now in terms of opportunity for people. So, but fundamentally, our country hasn't moved wages forward as we would have liked. Everybody agrees with that. So with Reagan, you had the idea of trickle down, and Obama wants to talk about trickle up. So let's look at what these Democrats have in store. So the Democrats want to shift the funding priority away from this Iraq war, for example, and probably, in my opinion, they're going to try to move money into domestic program funding and out of foreign policy related military expenditures. So they're going to give some money to the government, and they're going to intervene in the marketplace. They're going to regulate it. And they're going to try to get those people in the lower middle class health care and education and jobs through government regulation, oversight, and funding. So they're saying, yes, we're going to put the money in the government, and yes, some of it will be wasted, but these programs are vital. And then, so what makes us uncomfortable about that message is, for example, the issue of the teachers union. There's a lot of people who feel that people in the school bureaucracy are very difficult to manage if they're low performing. So that gives us all an unease about giving money to the government unless we know it's going to be well spent. So that issue has got to be addressed. People have to be convinced that the money is not going to be wasted. And so it's all really about execution, because a badly executed democratic program will result in distorting the path into the 22nd century through bureaucrats making assessments that are less accurate than competitive forces. And so that's a bad, and the good side of it is a properly funded social welfare program in the U.S. It propels the lower middle class out of their straits and into better life, and protects the middle class American way of life, or decent human conditions for any person, where we have take our human rights up a notch and say we have the right to a college education, by and large, the right to health care, and the right to a dignified place in the economy as a worker or a business person. So in a positively executed democratic program, you'd get a tremendous amount of benefits, and you'd have a better educated workers. We compete better in the global economy. So as long as the corporations have a fundamental major stake in the U.S. rather than being completely globalized, you're going to want to see educated, skilled workforce in this country. And you're not going to get that for free. And it's unlikely to come just from unrestrained capitalism, because these guys are going to be looking to get the jobs done where they're done cheapest. So there's this short-sightedness. You get your philanthropists, you get your Warren Buffetts, who I think would have been the best vice president, although Joe Biden is great. But sure, it would have been nice to get somebody who's a proven track record of reforming and cutting-edge economics. So then we've looked at the two positive and negative sides of the view of the can't we all get along, or leave me alone, don't tread on me. This is a basic issue of human nature. Conservative economists are very skeptical about how altruistic humans are. Left and liberal thinkers, progressive thinkers, generally think human beings are capable of rising to the social good. So badly executed Republican philosophy is going to be, I think the Bush administration has been a poster child for everything that's wrong with letting a wealthy, moneyed interest take control of the government and looting it criminally, along with this is similar to fascism, when you have a super leader supported heavily by the wealthy. What you're seeing with Bush is executive branch power. When you couple that with a powerful, deregulated country business, that is not entirely dissimilar to a tendency towards fascism. So we've got all we need to know about the nightmare. Now, it just does baffle me, though, that people aren't willing to take a chance on reinvesting and rebuilding America through public sector programs right now, because things are really tough for a lot of people. And it seems to me that John McCain is a much riskier bet, because we need to change the game now in this country to